Hey guys, it's me, Fusion What Ifs, and today we're doing What If Deku was the Last Firebender Part 2. Well, yeah, sorry I haven't uploaded in a while. To put things simply, exams were still kicking my asses, but I'm now done, and I should be able to upload damn near daily. I'm gonna call this Operation Get my Money Up, so yeah. Also, to make up for not uploading for a while, I'm probably gonna double upload today. And it's not going to be What If Asta Was Going to Reincarnation Part 3. I'm going to push that one back a bit more since I don't really want one series to be the forefront of my channel forever. The goal is to make consecutive bangers, not just one singular banger, right? So, yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say, you guys. Make sure to stay tuned this entire week, maybe till the end of this month. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Without further ado, play my intro. Now let's straight into it. This would take place directly after the villain versus heroes training exam, whatever. And yeah, a week would pass. Within this week, Izuku had actually started talking to Momo due to him thinking Momo would be pretty strong. Well, not pretty strong, but pretty smart, right? In an intelligent sense. And he'd want to, socialize with her. He'd also end up talking a bit to Kaminari due to his quirk being electrification, and also because he thinks that Kaminari could be a good hero if he was trained enough, right? So, because of this is where they would now sort of get their sort of bond and be like the three of them being friends and all that good stuff, right? Because of this, Kaminari wouldn't actually talk to Mineta at all. Mineta would have pretty much no friends besides, I'm gonna say, like, that one guy who has like animal voice, what's his name? Koji or something like that? Not really important. But yeah. Anyways, after this this would be the day of where they would have to pick the class president, right? So obviously everyone was saying vote for me, except for the few exceptions, like I'm gonna say Momo and Kaminari and Izuku and all of that. And this is when Ida would then propose them to use a democratic system and they vote. And after voting, it would come in that Izuku would actually win with Momo as close second, right? Now, the people who voted for him it was 4 votes to like 3 votes. Yeah, Izuku got like 4 votes and Momo got like 2 votes, right? And then everyone else pretty much got 1 vote because no one else voted for them, and some people got 0 because some people didn't vote for them and all of that, right? So, anyways, we would now have Izuku as class president and Momo as vice class president, right? Izuku would walk up and he would say he's going to try his best, and he would then just walk back down. Now Momo would go up there and say a sort of small speech to get everyone sort of hyped, and everyone would just nod their head and start clapping for her, right? Now we would have lunch, and Izuku would be sitting with Momo, Kaminari, and I'ma also say Ida and Ochako, right? They would then bring up why they want to become heroes, and then I'll mention all sort of reasons and all of that, right? Kaminari would end up saying they want to become a hero because I must say that he really just likes saving people and all that, and he thinks it's gonna be some fun, right? Izuku would then say he wants to become a hero to gain his mother's respect. Now, this was one that would actually catch them off guard. Before they can question him about it, we would actually have the U.S. not the U.S. I almost said USJR. We would then have an alarm go off as suddenly all the students start panicking, right? Now, obviously, as they're sort of just rushing down the halls, Izuku's table would end up being pushed around, and including the people sitting at the table, until he got up, pulled one of the kids by the side, and said, "Hey, what's happening?" And this is when one of the kids then replied with, it seems that someone got into the school. It just never happened like my 3 years I've been at UA and all of that, right? As he then starts panicking and just runs off, right? Now, Izuku would look out the window and you would see that's actually the reporters that he met this morning, right? And he would actually end up using jet propulsion, but jet stepping, right? This would be a more precise version of jet propulsion, something he had been trying out a bit, right? So he'd end up using that and getting on top of that same place that Ida did, right? And he wouldn't use a microphone, but he would just yell really loud, and he would end up saying, "Hey, stop, okay? It's just the reporters outside that they got in." This is sort of embarrassing to see. This was actually a hero attack. We would all be dead. Staying calm is what we needed to do if this was actually a villain attack. I'm embarrassed to say the least. And this is when I just jump back down using jet stepping to sort of, stops in his fall, and then he would then walk towards the gang, right? Which would be, the people who were sitting before, right? Now, at this point, they would have already forgotten about Izuku mentioning his reason, and they would also be saying, looks like we picked a good class rep and all of that, and I'm sort of just hyping him up sort of slightly, right? Now, Izuku wouldn't really take this much to heart. It would just sort of nod his head and then go back to eating his food. Now, you would get back to the classroom, and Aizawa would then say, Izuku, I saw you out there. Good job. Anyways, we're going to be going to the USJ. And this is when everyone would be like, you mean Universal Studios Japan? And they'd also be hyped up, and Aizawa would say, well, no, but it's something else. Anyways, put on your hero suits and let's get going, right? And they would all do that, right? And this one, Izuku's hero suit wouldn't be burnt, so you'd actually be wearing it since Baku couldn't even touch him in this one. So yeah, as we get onto the bus, right, Izuku was sitting beside Kaminari, I'm gonna say, and this is when Suyu would actually ask, hey, Midoriya, what's your quirk? As Izuku would then say, oh, it's firebending. And they'd look to him for more explaining, right? And Izuku would then say, I'm able to control and produce fire, pretty much. Think of it as sort of like Endeavor's Hellflame, but I guess better. And this would actually sort of catch Todoroki's attention, right? As they think, that bastard's quirk would be even better. So if I beat him, does that mean I can beat my dad too? Or sorry, that bastard too? As Todoroki would then sort of set his sights on Izuku and wanting to beat him, right? Now everyone was just sort of nod their head, and this is when but Kirishima then tag in saying, you have such a cool quirk, unlike me, all I do is harden. Pause. Sorry. But yeah, I laugh at the most minuscule of shit ever. So anyways, let me continue. This is when Izuku would then say, no, it's a pretty good quirk. Honestly, I've seen people with sort of quirks like yours, but they didn't train at all. With the route you're on to now, you're gonna become a pretty good hero. And this actually sort of warmed Kirishima's heart. He said, really? And Izuku would just nod his head and go back to his meditating, I guess, is what he would be doing on the bus trip. After a while, they'd end up reaching the USJ, which stands for Unforeseen Simulation Joint, right? To the outside, it looks sort of like the Universal Studios Japan, but in the inside, there'd be a bunch of different simulated environments, right? As they would walk in, they would meet 13, who Ochako would start to fawn over by saying, oh my god, look, it's 13, and she's like a favorite hero and all of that, and she's just having a fangirl moment, right? Now, while this would all be happening, we would now have a portal open up the middle of the USJ, and all the villains are starting to pour in, right? Kirishima would then mention saying, oh, you can have fake villains? That's awesome. And then Aizawa would then say, these aren't fake villains. I'm 13, keep the kids safe, as he would then have them all stay behind, as he would jump down and start taking on a bunch of villains, right? Now, as this would be happening, we now have Kurogiri walk through the portal. Well, not walk through the portal. We now have Shigaraki walk through the portal with the Nomu, and Kurogiri would then close the portal, as he would then say, seems like All Might isn't here yet. And this is when Shigaraki would then say, where is he? Maybe come up and kill a few kids. And pretty much Aizawa. Shit, I'm messing up a lot. But pretty much Shigaraki would then have Kurogiri go kidnap a few kids and spread them all around so the villains could go take care of them, right? Kurogiri would do just that. He would get onto there and then say, I'm gonna kidnap you all now, or some shit like that. I'm not sure what the hell his line was in canon, I sort of forgot, but yeah. Before he can even talk anymore, we'd have Baku and Kirishima aim an attack directly at Kurogiri, but it wouldn't hit since he's missed. Now, when this would happen, Izuku could only think of one thing, right? He would pick up Ida and he would throw him, right? Now, this would be sort of like a jet propulsion field to throw, and he would then be able to get Ida through the door, and end up saying, Ida, go get the heroes, before he then fall through a portal, right? Now, after this, he then fall directly into the water, and he realized that he can firebend, right? Since that's a weakness firebenders have. They can't firebend underwater unless they're being direct contact. Now, this is when one of the villains from underwater would then go directly at them, and it would almost get to Izuku before we would not have Tsuyu jump in and save him, right? So you would then get Izuku out of the water, and they would all sort of regroup on the boat. Now, Izuku realizing that he can't waterbend with all this water on him would then end up using Breath of Fire. This is pretty much a firebending breath control technique which is used to heat up a firebender's body, because firebenders can't firebend if the area is too cold, or if they're wet. Pause. Oh my god. But yeah, just Izuku would not be able to firebend again, and you then mentioned that they don't seem to know his quirks. They don't seem to know their quirks, right? Because even though they took him to this place where he wasn't able to firebend to his full extent, they also had Tsuyu here, who excelled in water, right? So they must not know their quirks. And using this, we could probably cast them by surprise and all of that, right? Now, they would actually end up doing something different from canon, right? So what would happen here is that Izuku would pretty much jump, and he would then use jet propulsion directly on the water, causing a bunch of steam to rise, and all the villains would actually sort of just swarm toward to get him, right? As this would happen, Izuku would tell Mineta to throw a bunch of his sticky balls in the water, and they would all just sort of bunch up into there, and bada bing, bada boom, they would all be stuck like they were in canon, just minus the Detroit Smash. After this, Izuku would then pick up Tsuyu and Mineta, and then use jet propulsion to get them all the way to land, right? Now, after they got there, they would see Aizawa being completely brutalized by the Nomu. Seeing this, Izuku could only really go to help, and he would tell Aizawa and Mineta to get onto the stand immediately. They would be doing this as Izuku would then get to Aizawa, throw Aizawa back to Tsuyu, and he starts to engage with the Nomu and fight, right? Now, obviously, he would start losing pretty badly. This is when he would sort of enter his zone, like say I spoke about in the first part, as his eyes would then start to glow even brighter yellow, and suddenly he would seem to move even more fluidly, right? At this point, his understanding of his firebending would increase by quite a bit, and at this point, he would actually be sort of enhancing himself using firebending. How would this be so? He would have fire coming out from both his heels and also both his forearms, right? So after this, he'd then be able to move a lot faster, and it would actually look like it was say, I need to stop talking so fast. But it started to look like the Nomu versus All Might fight, right? That's how fast it would be going. But instead, Izuku wouldn't be hitting wouldn't be getting punched at all, because he knows that if he got punched, that would be the end for him, right? He was sort of weaving and redirecting all his attacks until suddenly we would then see that he knows that he can't win like this, right? The Nomu shock absorption regeneration is going to stop him from winning, right? Seeing this, we would now have Shoto actually send an iceberg directly at the Nomu, sort of freezing it in spot for a little bit. Then Bakugo would show up, and he would send explosion directly at the iceberg, which would actually shatter, but the Nomu would then just regenerate, right? Seeing this, Izuku would then say, Bakugo, Todoroki, buy me some time. And they would be sort of begrudgingly do it, since even though they didn't want to listen to him, he seems to have he seems to have a plan, right? Which is something that they need to have. So, because of this, he would start holding up the Nomu just barely. As it was happening, Izuku would then back up a bit as he would stop releasing flames from his heels and his forearms, as suddenly he would start to charge up fire in his palm of his hands, right? It wouldn't be like a ball of fire, but you can see clearly that on his palms, he would seem to be heating up as it would turn a bright red and eventually a blue color. And after about, I'm gonna say, 10 seconds, which is a pretty long time for kids of their caliber to be fighting the Nomu, right? He then tell Todoroki to freeze the Nomu in spot just for a second. That's all he needs, and Todoroki would do it, right? He would freeze the Nomu in the spot, and then Izuku would then use a jet propulsion directly at the Nomu, and he then thrust his hand directly towards the Nomu's chest, and it would then create this massive hole and shoot the Nomu directly at the USJ. Pretty much what Izuku did was that he did what he usually does when he's making a fire stream, right? Which was to shoot out fire, but instead he condensed it to the point where it just blew a massive hole in the Nomu and had enough force to send him flying out the USJ, exactly like All Might's Detroit Smash, I'm pretty sure. Now, for reference of what this movie looked like, just think of that one time Benimaru pretty much blew this hole in, an inferno that one time with that cool sound effect, right? So yeah, after this Nomu would then be taken care of, and Shigaraki would be really, really pissed. He'd start yelling that they cheated and all of that, and that this wasn't fair. And suddenly, Izuku, Bakugo, and Todoroki then start to go after Shigaraki, right? Now Izuku, Todoroki, and Bakugo will be all exhausted, right? But they had this chance. Seeing this, Kagura would then suddenly appear, warp him and Shigaraki out of there immediately, and the rest of the buildings were taken care of with ease, right? USJ averted minimal casualties, and Izuku and Aizawa wouldn't be as wounded as he was last time, right? Now they would all suddenly faint. I'm talking about Izuku, Todoroki, and Bakugo because they fought really, really hard against Inomu, and they're not at that level just yet, but they're gonna be sometime, right? So now we have them waking up all in the hospital, and they would all be like fine, right? They're just exhausted and all that. They didn't take a lot of damage, and the worst of them was like a broken rib, which healed pretty fast thanks to what's her name? Recovery Girls? Yeah, Recovery Girls quirk. So, yeah. Now we would move on to, I guess, the next day where they'd all be at school, and Aizawa would announce that their job isn't over just yet, and they'll all attend something. It's going to be more villains. But this is when Aizawa announced they're going to be doing the sports festival very, very soon, and that they should start training for it. So they would have 2 weeks. 2 weeks of just training. Alright, this is obviously gonna be a very noticeable cut. So the reason why I was sort of speedrunning the first half of this video was because I was gonna go get a haircut, and I wanted to get this audio done before I got the haircut, but that didn't happen. So I'm back for my haircut, but at the very least now it's gonna be a lot slower and have a lot more detail. So I hope y'all enjoy. Anyways, yeah, like I said before, they're gonna be 2 weeks of just pure training. Now, Izuku might obviously get stronger. His power-ups are going to help me to keep that on the down low for right now. But also, he's also going to be training with Kaminari and Momo. So they're going to get a lot stronger too. And Momo would end up learning a few combat techniques and being able to use a sword, bow staff, and shield properly. Now, Kaminari wouldn't grow way too much. He'd just end up being able to concentrate his lightning a bit more so it wouldn't just discharge everywhere, but at a singular point. And he would also start to mess around with enhancing his body with lightning, but it would be very, very painful. Also, not lightning, I mean electricity. Now, let's begin. They would end up walking onto the stadium as they would be called in Class 1A. The entire crowd would go wild seeing the next generation of heroes, right? The top class at that. Now, this is when they would bring in other classes too, which will also be cheered for, but not nearly as much as Class 1A. Now, Midnight would end up going on and start to say a few words of encouragement before bringing in the representative of this year, which I believe I'm going to make Izuku this time, right? So you could end up walking up and you'd end up saying that, what would be a good speech for this? It needs to match his character too. Hard work. That's all you need to become a hero. Doesn't matter what sort of quirk you have, as long as you train hard enough, you can become the greatest of heroes, passing All Might. So that's what I want to see here. People working hard. And that's pretty much all he would say. After that, it ended up just giving the mic back to Midnight, and everyone would end up just clapping, right? Now, I should have added plus ultra at the end of that, but meh. So anyways, we would now have them getting ready, as Midnight would then spin the wheel, landing on obstacle race. As this, they would be in the obstacle race. As soon as Midnight would then say go, Izuku would then end up using jet propulsion to boost himself all the way past the tunnel, all the way past the tunnel onto a 0-pointer, right? As he lands on a 0-pointer, he'd end up blowing a fire stream directly through its head, killing it, and then moving on to the rest of the 0-pointers, right? He ended up getting about 3 0-pointers that were in his way before eventually reaching the pitfall, right? Now at this point, Bakugo and Todoroki would have just gone to the would have just gone to the tunnel, and would have just gone to the 0-pointers, and Izuku would have a pretty decent lead ahead. He ended up using jet propulsion again and blast his way all the way over the edge. From here, just start running, because even though jet propulsion is very useful, he hasn't exactly mastered it yet. So he can't fly, but he would be able to go a long distance in short, fast bursts. Holy, that's why it's hard to say. So yeah, Eventually, Todoroki and Bakugo would start to catch up, and Izuku, seeing this, would only be able to just turn around, and then he would send a flame blade directly at the floor, causing explosions to go off, knocking Bakugo and Todoroki back. With this, Izuku would then immediately hit a jump potion once again, and due to the bombs on the bottom of his feet, the mines, he would then boost even farther and get first place like in canon. After he'd walk out, he wouldn't even smile, just have the same cold face on his the same cold look on his face as the person I would announce. And the winner of the obstacle race, coming in first place, is Izuku Midoriya. And everyone would just start to cheer and clap and all that good stuff, right? Second place would end up being Todoroki, Bakugo, and third, like in canon, right? Now we have the cavalry battle, which I'm not gonna go over. Just know that in this one, Izuku wins. So yeah. Now let us begin with the matches. Now, what was I gonna say? Yeah, we're gonna have the first match, that being Izuku versus Shinso. Izuku would end up fighting Shinso, and they would both enter the ring. Ojo would have given him a sort of short warning at this, but Izuku wouldn't really have needed it, right? So they would walk in, and this one Shinso would just immediately start speaking a bunch of bullshit, right? Saying, "Oh, it's so lucky for you to have a good quirk, and people must praise you wherever you go," and all of that. And eventually, Izuku wouldn't even care. But this would be until he then hit a sort of sore spot by mentioning, "I bet your parents are so proud of you, huh? You probably don't know what it feels like to be abandoned by all your friends, huh? Even my parents don't even really like me all that much. You're so lucky." And this is a sort of sore spot for Izuku, right? The fact that his father is dead, and that his mom doesn't like him, and that pretty much his entire family sees him as this sort of mistake, right? The fact that he even had firebending, this quirk, is what caused him such a painful childhood, right? And now you have someone here saying that he doesn't know what it feels like to be abandoned. And so Izuku just tilts his head downwards a bit, right? As a shadow would then cover his face. And then Shinso would be like, what you gonna do? Cry or something? And this is when Izuku would then open up his eyes, right? And they would be glowing an intense yellow. Almost like how they were glowing during the USJ, right? As Izuku would then start walking slowly, as his steps would be very, very audible to the rest of the crowd, right? Shinso would be frozen in fear. The look in his eyes, it wasn't a look of a hero. No, it was as if someone was gonna kill him. He felt bloodlust. He hasn't ever felt anything like this before. As Izuku then moved towards Shinso, right? And Izuku then throw a punch, and he would just throw it directly beside Shinso's head, right? But Izuku could end up sending a pressurized fire stream, right? Now this move by itself, even though he shot it beside Shinso's head, Shinso could feel all the heat that came from it, right? As he would then turn to his side, and he would see the massive crater, ravine, whatever, that was formed behind the blast. You could see that it went outwards, but it would be a meter deep, and it would just get wider and wider the farther outwards it went. Hell, even hit the walls. Some of the audience members almost got hit by the flames. It was sort of like Todoroki's iceberg that he used against Sero, but except a fire attack, right? As Shinso would then only be able to fall backwards and then scurry his way out of this arena as quick as he can, right? Not wanting to cop that, okay? He didn't want the smoke. So this is when Midnight would then announce, "The winner is Izuku Midoriya," as the stadium would be quiet. Until they'd all start to erupt in cheers, seeing with Izuku's just display of absolute power, right? Now, next fight would end up being Izuku versus Endeavor. And no, I'm not going to cover any of the other fights. But, well, actually, let me do something real quick. We're going to have Kaminari versus that one girl with grass hair. Ibarra, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, that would be the girl's name. Now, Kaminari would still lose, but it wouldn't be as badly as it did in canon, right? In this one, you'd actually end up getting a few hits off, sort of sending her until, obviously you should end up dispatching him with ease. Now we would have Momo versus, I think, who did she fight? Was it like Tokuyami or something like that? But yeah, she's still gonna lose either way, so it doesn't really matter, right? Now, let us continue on Izuku versus Todoroki. Izuku would be walking towards the stadium when he would end up being stopped by Endeavor. Endeavor ended up saying, "You have a strong fire quirk." Kind of reminds me of, my younger days. Anyways, I want you to make Todoroki use his fire, Shoto use his fire side. Now, Izuku would just look at his endeavor and then say, whether or not he uses his fire is not my choice. But what I do know is that he's not you. So I suggest you sort of loosen your hold on him, because you're just going to push him away even more. Not like you deserved it in the first place. As Izuku would then walk away, right? Now this is sort of boil Endeavor's blood, right? As he would then feel pissed. But he sort of liked Izuku's spunk, right? Reminded him of when he was younger. So yeah, he would just huff and move out the way, walking all the way back to the stands, right? Now, we would have Izuku versus Todoroki. This fight would immediately begin. Todoroki would send a massive iceberg directly at Izuku. Izuku would just throw fire, and it would melt the ice with absolute ease, right? At this point, Izuku's fire easily surpasses Todoroki's ice, and Todoroki doesn't really stand a chance, but he's putting up a good fight. Todoroki would continue to send ice waves at him, ice pillars, and even make ice walls to defend against the fire. But it would all be for naught, as Izuku would end up moving closer and fighting him in close hand-to-hand combat, which is something that Todoroki didn't actually specialize in, but Izuku did, due to the way firebending is made style-wise. Firebending is a really combat-oriented bending, right? So it's good for both long and close range. So, against Todoroki, who's only good at close range, only good at long range, moving in closer was actually a good idea, as you then start to piece up Todoroki, for lack of a better word, as I mean 2-piece no sauce, and 2-piece no sauce, no Sprite either, bro. I'm sorry, but he's getting completely pieced up, right? So now we would have Izuku saying, "Why are you holding back?" As Todoroki would then say, "How would you know? Did he never put you up to this?" And Izuku would end up saying, "No. Didn't I tell you before? Effort, hard work. That's what I want to see from everybody here. You're a mockery of what I set up stands. You're a mockery of what it means to be the next generation of heroes. Don't you want to be a hero?" As this would then proc Todoroki's memory of his mom talking to him that one time saying, "Become a good hero, Todoroki," or something like that, right? With this, Todoroki would end up erupting in flames while saying, "I want to be your hero too," as he would then have a sort of sad smile on his face as Izuku would gain this smirk. He would then immediately back off using depth potion to dodge the fire, even though I could have augmented it. But Izuku's fire augmentation, which is his ability to pretty much control and weave around fire, isn't that strong yet, since he hasn't really had anyone with fire to bend, right, to sort of master the ability on. So you just back up a bit, and you'd be like, "That's more like it." Anyways, let's finish this up, as they would both start to charge up their moves, right? Todoroki ended up saying this massive wave of fire directly at Izuku, and Izuku would end up blasting it away using, would end up blasting it away using a casual fire stream, right? And this is when he would end up using, I believe, a pressurized fire stream, right? Pretty much you end up charging it up a fire stream, but then end up pressurizing it too, and you end up shooting his fire against Todoroki's. It would be a beautiful clash of fire, blue and red fighting. Think of a sort of Izuku versus, think of sort of a Zuko versus Azula fight, right? That sort of thing, but on like the same sort of level. Fire-wise at the very least. Izuku has a lot more technique, and his fire is still gonna grow. So this isn't the maximum potential yet. So, anyways, Izuku's fire would eventually win, since his blue fire overpowered Todoroki's regular fire, which he had no training with, and boom, Todoroki is now defeated. But he would have a smile on his face as he would then tell Izuku, "Thank you," and he would then faint off, right? Now Izuku would be left standing in the stadium, and the crowd would go wild, cheering Izuku Midoriya, King of Fire, whatever, like that. What's the name of the fire god in, then the god of fire in like Japan? I'm not sure. Kaijin? Someone's definitely gonna comment on me saying the word Kaijin, but yeah, pretty much end up calling him something like that, and everyone would be sort of excited that he won, pumped about the show of power, right? And it never would have screamed Shoto, but this intense fight wouldn't even have had Todoroki look back on him, right? He wouldn't even have noticed. He would just be excited. The fact that he feels free, in a sense, right? Now, last fight we would have would be, what's it called? It would be Izuku versus Bakugo, and yeah, it wouldn't be all that exciting. We would have Izuku versus Bakugo. Bakugo ended up going in, shooting a few fire and all of that. And yeah, Izuku would be able to just bend it most of the time. But he decided he wouldn't do that anymore, right? He just wants to fight Todoroki, he wants to fight Bakugo like mano mano, right? So he just end up shooting a few fireballs here and there, swinging a few fire lashes and all of that, right? Bakugo would be really beaten up, and this is when he decided to use howitzer impact. Now he'd end up shooting directly at Izuku, right? Now Izuku couldn't really augment this, right? Since the fire wasn't yet shot out, right? So you can only do what he did in the USJ, right? He would start charging up a really strong fire blast. Actually, I should name this, shouldn't I? What should I name it? Actually, I'm gonna leave that up to you guys in the comments. I'm probably gonna have a name for it next part. But if someone comments a name for it, I'm gonna name it. You guys are wondering what I'm talking about. I mean that one move that Izuku used against the Nomu, right? But yeah, he's gonna use pretty much a really pressurized fire stream, and both their attacks would clash. Now, quite obviously, Izuku would end up winning, but he'd be a bit proud since Bakugo grew a lot stronger during the last 2 weeks, right? So yeah, ended up going onto the podium and he ended up getting the medal like he did in Canon, and yeah. Honestly, this is where we would now have Izuku going down from the stage and end up being congratulated by Momo and Kaminari, right? As they then start to head back. And I'ma say that Izuku and Momo actually head home the same way. So after this would all be over, they end up heading home the same way. Izuku getting his medal and all that. I'm just not gonna mention All Might's speech and all that since that's not really important. But yeah, we would now have them talking, and Momo would then start to break down, apologizing because even though she did train a lot, she still wasn't able to win, right? Izuku would then hug her, saying it's all right and that she tried her best, right? This is what you wanted to see: hard work. And Momo would then end up smiling, as they would just end up walking. He would end up walking her home until eventually walking himself home and sleeping. That's it, guys. Hope y'all enjoyed. This has been What If Deku Was a Fire Slayer? Sorry, Fire Slayer. What If Deku Was the Last Firebender, Part 2. Sorry I haven't posted in a while. Like I said before, I should be double uploading, so expect another new What If actually in like the next 4, maybe 5 hours. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Not much else to say besides stay cold, stay frosted, peace.